Welcome to the course Java Programming. Topic is bubble sort. Myself Priya, Assistant Professor, Department of IT, Sri Ramakrishna Institute of Technology. So objective of today's course is I'm going to explain how the bubble sort will work in a particular array. So sorting, which is usually to arrange the data in some given order. So the order, it may be increasing or decreasing order. If it is increasing, then ascending order. If it is decreasing, then it is descending order. So this sorting operations will be applied to both numerical data and alphabetical data. So now I'm going to explain about bubble sort, how it will works in a particular array. First, we have to compare the two successive elements in an array. If the first element which is greater than the second one, then we need to swap those first element with second element. So this is the basic concept for bubble sort. Here is the pseudocode for bubble sort. The first outer loop, it should start from 0 to last array index minus 1. So inside this outer loop, I have to do the operation. The inner loop, it should start with 0 to last array index I minus 1. So we have to increment this loop by 1. So inside this inner loop, I have to compare two consecutive elements. So those elements which are not in a correct order. The order is the first element which must be smaller than the second one. If it is not in that order, then I have to swap those two elements. So this is the pseudocode for bubble sort. Okay, so I will explain this pseudocode with one example. Here at the beginning, the array should be like this. The elements in the array is in unsorted order. Okay. So here the array size is 4. The index, it should start with 0 to 3. So in this table, the first row which represents the value of the array, the second row which represents the index of the array. So the first index, the element is 17. The last index is 3. The element is 2. So I just execute the pseudocode with this example. So the first iteration of the inner loop, the j of the j, it will point the first index 0. That is the first iteration of the outside loop, the inner loop variable j, which points the first variable, that is first index 0. The variable is 17. So now I have to compare the first two elements 17 with 26. Okay. So 17, the order is the first number, it should be smaller than the second element. Okay, the order is correct because the first element is 17, second element is 26. So I don't need to swap. In the second iteration of the inner loop, the j will point to the next element. So that is the index 1, the element is 26. Now I compare to the two consecutive elements, that is 26 and 5. So the order here, the first element which is greater than the second element, so I need to swap these two elements. So that is the concept of bubble sort. So here, the output is like this. The 26 and 5, it will be interchanged. It has to be interchanged, okay. Then the next iteration of the inner loop, j will point to the next position, that is index 2. Now I have to compare the two successive elements, 26 and 2. So the order is not in a correct order because 26 which is greater than 2. So I need to swap these two elements. So at last, the first pass, the sorted element is 26. That is, the largest element in the array, it will go in an appropriate position. So the next pass, the j will point to the first element. I have to compare first two consecutive positions, 17 and 5. So it is not in a correct order, so I need to swap it. So after that, the array should be like this, 5 and 17. So next iteration, that is next iteration of the inner loop, I have to compare two consecutive elements from the second position to third position, 17 and 2. So it is also not in the correct order, the 17 which is greater than 2. So I need to swap those two elements. So after the second pass, the 17, it will go for the next position. So the second pass, the second largest element in the array, it will go to the appropriate position. So the sorted element should be like this: 17 and 26. The unsorted subarray is 5 and 2. Then I will go for next iteration, that is I equal to 2. So in this last pass, I have to compare the two elements 5 and 2. So the first element which is greater than the second element, so I need to swap it. 5, it will go to the next position, the 2, it will go for first position. Okay. So the third largest value 5 which has bubbled up to the correct position. So the sorted element should be like this: 5, 17, 26, and the first element which is automatically sorted and it will be in the correct positions. So this is the basic concept of bubble sort, how it will works. The main thing is we have to compare the consecutive two elements. If the first element which is greater than the second element, then we need to compare it. We need to swap it. So here the coding, Java coding for bubble sort. So the first iteration loop I should fill with integer I equal to 0. Then I have to find out the length using the function array.length. Then minus 1. Then inner loop, the same array.length minus I minus 1. Then I have to compare the two consecutive elements, that is array of j and array of j plus 1. So the first, it may be a greater than to second element. If that condition is true, then I have to compare, then I have to swap those two elements. So that's why here the swapping procedure. Temp equal to array of j plus 1, array of j plus 1 equal to array of j, then array of j equal to 10. So this is the program code we have to include in the Java program to swap the elements in an array. I hope this will be helpful for you. Thank you.